fail. You need the permission. So if your managers and if your line manager doesn't want you to talk about failure, that's not going to get too far. So you need the permission. And again, permission comes from the top, the very top in most instances. And you do need some budget as well. So that doesn't have to be a massive budget, but it needs to be the opportunity for you to try some stuff that doesn't necessarily bring in as much money as your tried and tested methods. And then there are some personal attributes that you need as well. You need to find these from within yourself. So things like resilience. If you're not resilient, and if you kind of take the knockbacks really personally to heart and don't bounce back, then you're not going to be able to try new things and succeed in that way. And persistence. So when you're trying new things, people aren't always entirely, they're not always receptive straight away, and therefore you need to sort of persist and knock down the doors in that way. You also need the courage to be vulnerable. So some of the kind of, if you listen to founders' stories, often the ideas they're coming up with are pretty weird, and people will say, your idea is crap, it will never work. So that sort of courage to be vulnerable is really important, as is a certain level of curiosity. So if you're a curious person and you want to solve problems in different ways, that will help you in terms of innovation, and failure will help you realise what kind of path to go on. So, a really good example here, and Kate's given okay for me to publish her kind of exchange. So this is Kate Lee, she's CEO of ClickSargent, and she put on Twitter, what do you want to hear about in the ClickSargent impact report? Any questions that we should answer? So I said, why don't you talk about some things that haven't worked necessarily very well? And her response to that was, it's only 12 pages long, there won't be enough room for all of the failures in the year. So this is a really strong example of leadership, and she's admitting in a kind of open forum things that they've tried in the year that haven't worked, and that kind of gives permission to people that work at ClickSargent that failure is okay. So a really good piece of leadership from her. I think she's talking at the Newcastle event, yes. So, an example of persistence. This is quite a lot of fun to film, so hopefully it'll work.
Yes, you're probably wondering why I've pulled you in here today, but I've got a challenge for you.
How exciting! I'm up for it.
Right. Well, you don't know what it is yet, but right. So, I basically want you to crack an apple in half with your bare hands.
Crack an apple in half with my bare hands. Okay.
Apparently, it's possible.
It is possible.
Apparently,
okay.
yes.
Sounds quite hard.
Well, I give it a go.
So I can't use anything except my bare hands?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you need.
Okay. Right. Squeezing it. Quite hard. We're not going to give up on this. The apple can be broken in half. I made it to the US very much recently. Between the legs, that's your knees, that's your ankle. Am I allowed to stand on it?
No.
I don't think a karate shot's really quite work. Push all the way through if that's on the
and roll those thumbs out. Yes! Yes!
two halves. Okay, so that was quite a lot of fun to film, and I recommend anyone has a go at it. It's really, really fucking hard. It's also not much fun, but when you do it, you feel amazing. So yeah, thanks for saying that challenge, Anne. So two things to take out of that. Firstly, kids are endlessly inventive, so they have a lot better, probably better imaginations than adults. So yeah, congratulations to that boy for cracking apple with his skull and finger. And also that there are different ways of solving a problem. So the way that I ended up doing it was not the recommended route, but the guy that says you just roll out your thumbs, it's a lie. It's a lot harder than that. You don't just roll out your thumbs to break the apple. So there you go, you need to find a different way. Persistence will pay off. And I will be able to change this. Interesting. Oh, okay. Bear with me. This is planned failure. Okay, that was enjoyable. So, what have you guys failed at? So, I have 20 odd messages, so this has worked. Thank you very much. Let's go with this one, which I haven't yet read. So, after listening to supporter feedback at the Edinburgh Marathon, who sent me the Edinburgh Marathon story? Excellent. After listening to supporter feedback at the Edinburgh Marathon, I convinced my charity to invest a chunk of money in the charity village presence, add in 4 staff, travel, accommodation, equipment, snacks, etc. Anyway, it was a massive fail. And one runner out of a potential 79 came to see us. Wow, okay, thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting story. I'm sure lots of other people have got similar examples of stuff. Okay, so another one. I was working with the Rugby Football Union on their brochures. Who's this one? Hello. Approved the brochure so many times, but somehow it was sent out to 10,000 people with Twickenham spelled wrongly on the front cover. We had to claim against the agency's insurance to pay for it to be reprinted. I learned that you must always get someone who hasn't worked on your project. This is so true. Get someone who hasn't worked on the project to prove something before it goes out. It's not life or death, and I didn't get sacked. No one made me feel like it was solely my fault, and that meant my confidence didn't take quite as big a knock as it might have done otherwise. Thank you, that's absolutely fantastic one. So, I think it's kind of the point here is that everyone's failed, and a lot of the things that we've failed at, we've also all done ourselves, so there's sort of solidarity in numbers. So, I talked also about courage and vulnerability. So this is Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, talking about some of their experiences. When they came up with the idea of Airbnb, they basically said that they would rent out their rooms, a mattress on the floor in their house. Everyone thought it was a stupid idea. The company's now worth £38 billion, so an interesting.
The first round of financing we did was the Visa round. Well, what do I mean by the Visa round? You know those binders you put baseball cards in?